Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we apologize for our slight tardiness. It is 7:15 p.m. on Tuesday, June the 8th of 2021. We are your hosts from, should be your left to right, El Presidente himself, Marcus Ruiz Evans, myself, Jason Wright, the co-chair, and Mr. Robert Stark, also co-chair.
Hello, everyone.
So, we finished last week talking about how we were seeking approval for the Solidarity Resolution. We finalized it. We're all comfortable with all of the wording and everything, even the template. And both items are awaiting approval and have been tabled until this upcoming Sunday. So, our plan is to move along in the hope that we can provide more examples to present to Congress so that they can have a very clear picture of how this template is going to help streamline things for us all. So I turn it over now to Mr. Robert Stark, co-chair. Would you care to get into the Catalan?
The plans, the Cape resolution, that text we basically agreed upon. So the update on that is that just has to be voted upon. So I submitted a resolution on Catalan independence using the same template that we used for the first one on the Cape Party statement. And Marcus, if you have that, if you want to post it in the chat, or if you want to read what I have.
Is this it, Robert?
That looks like it. This is a speech for the Catalan independence movement.
Let me do this, guys. Help everyone out.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm the oldest of us all.
Yeah, my 35-year-old eyes are not what they were when they were 16.
So let me get it back. Okay, same thing as last time. Tell me what you want me to do, and I will just do it. This is being recorded. The public can see. It's a democratic process to make these speeches. This is literally how we did the Cape Party one. So this is great. You're going to see the second thing.
So one example is I kept Mediterranean climate because technically that's accurate, but I am concerned it could be a bit too repetitive. This is just this is just sort of a basis. Obviously, a lot of it's going to be changed.
I think, it's really, it may be slightly repetitive with but only ones that also have a Mediterranean climate. Scotland obviously does not. So it is fitting, and they are nestled right up there alongside the Mediterranean, literally Mediterranean climate, as Mediterranean as it gets. We're the imposters compared to them. With our air quotes Mediterranean climate, right? They have the real deal. So I don't mind it. I don't see any fault with that. I do know that they also, economically speaking, are serving an overlord's pocketbook, so to speak.
So, the last example with the Cape, we mentioned one party rule, but that's obviously not the case with Spain. They do have a representational parliamentary system.
Wow! I wish you could see how hard that made me tilt to the side there. Yes and no. They still have their king. And though he's like supposedly just a figurehead, much like the Queen of England, he actually has the same amount of powers that their former dictator had. And we actually saw that in action against the Catalan people. It's one of the. So you remember I had pointed out there are sometimes we can't really say much. Like if a movement is violent, right? We can't really go and be like, yeah, we feel you. We're right there with you. This one, they're peaceful, and the opposition from the government was being violent. So, though there was violence that occurred, we
were discussing with the Basque independence movements, because of the history of conflict, that there's hesitancy about discussing that one. That's sort of an example, but that's obviously not the case for Catalan or for the Cape or for Scotland.
Yeah, and like what is it, Angola or whatever? Again, they've based it on violence, and so we can't really get behind it.
What is the one in Angola?
They're actually a microstate already, and there is a movement that is starting up there, but it's a very violent anarchist, like take down the government and don't replace it kind of a movement. Yeah, we definitely, and I only mention it because I've heard some folks bring it up trying to get us to talk about it and support it recently, and so I'm just like, let me be the first to strike that down, since I pay attention to all of the world movements, being the International Outreach Committee chair. Yeah, let's not poke a dragon on that one, because that one actually pokes both Spain and France, because they have it's interesting. There's a dual rule thing going on where they take turns, and the agreement was come upon, I believe, in like the 70s or something like that. Like they had some sort of agreement for a couple of 100 years, and then World War II broke out, right? And then when all the dust settled, it's funny because the little factoid in history that's like that they're most famous for is that they're so small that even though they officially joined in and signed in on the declaration of war against Germany in World War II, their name was not included on the declaration.
So with independence movements, where there's reservations, obviously the qualifications are peaceful and democratic, but I guess there's two different things to discuss. So one of them is there are independence movements that are explicitly backed by the United States to say undermine another region, and maybe that group has legitimate grievances. I think like Kurdistan might be an example, like where there might be legitimate grievances, but then you're kind of aligning yourself with U.S. foreign policy. And then also, I think someone in the past meeting said, like, if a movement is based explicitly on an ethnic characteristic, like, does that disqualify it? Because I don't think Catalan.
Well, now the thing about ethnic, we can look at the people of Afar who, yes, some have taken up arms, but
I think
it
someone in the meeting.
It really does seem like those who have taken up arms have done so only in response to having been, I mean, it's
That was
kind of an ethnic cleansing going on over there. And
that was a concern being brought up, but I think there's obviously going to be a lot of nuance. Like if a group is being mistreated because of their ethnicity, then obviously they might want to peacefully separate. So there's a lot of factors that have to be discussed. But yeah, the basis is obviously peaceful and democratic. Or also,
Yeah.
like another issue brought up is if some of them are more right wing, should we support them on principle? And my position is my personal position is we should be open to all of them as long as they're peaceful and democratic. But we talked about hypothetical examples, like if it's explicitly right wing, would people from the left then they would object to that? So those are all things to discuss. But I'm generally
Well,
pretty.
now the funny thing is that there is actually a lot of Europe that is considered right wing. They're to the left of modern American GOP Trump supporter Republicans. To the left of that, for sure. But they're still right. Chancellor Merkel is kind of in the middle, really. She's kind of centered, right? She's not hardcore left. She's not hardcore right. She's pretty balanced, really. And I think that's why the people keep coming back to her. Because it's, a healthy balance. But a lot of the rest of the world is actually, when you look at, their policies and the way they think, the way that they act and the laws and stuff that they enact, a lot of the rest of the world is actually kind of on the right. And so if we were to make it like, oh, you have to all be, pro-Democratic Party of America, well, then we're only going to be talking to the Democratic Party of America.
Oh yeah, I would just say like as long as they advocate peaceful and democratic, do a peaceful and democratic referendum, we should be open to them regardless of their politics.
Look at Texas.
Yeah, and Texas is
they're perfect
Texas,
example.
Alaska.
Yeah, right. Alaska is on the Pacific coast. It's north of us. It's huge and it's beautiful and wild and untamed and yada yada. And most of the people
Also, there's one, I think Alberta in Canada is another. They might have an independence movement. I'm not sure how active they are.
Well, yeah, and as far as Canadians breaking away and whatnot, I do not know too much about the history and the demographics of each of the states, right? Each of the territories. You've got, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, is it Ontario? Yeah, because Toronto is in Ontario, and Toronto home is.
I'm not aware of Ontario's separatist movement. I think Alberta, which is they're more conservative than the rest of Canada, and I'm not sure how active they are, but they do have a movement. Or I don't know how serious this is, but even some faction even wanted to join the United States or to form a country like merging with the Rocky Mountain states, but I have no idea. That could just be kind of hypothetical.
Yeah, that could be as hypothetical as the let's split it into 3 or 5 or 58. It's like, yeah. no one ever goes for that. Maybe like 2,000 people ever get behind that, ever, at its peak. And it never goes anywhere because most places have more than 2,000 people, especially here in California. I mean, sure, you could get, the town of North San Juan with its population of question mark. You could probably get.
Then yeah, you also have
in that
all
one
of these
town.
like. Should we put out resolutions for microstates like the one in Nevada, kind of near Reno?
Well, so I mean, the Tahoe National Forest is technically designated as federal wildlands. That's actually where I used to backpack a lot because I'm from Gold Country. So like, it's not gonna. And the only way to use these legal mandates and precedents for independence, it's very clearly got to be all of California or none of it at all. There is no legal precedent for one county to break away and declare independence or to become its own state, right?
Or if it would be a process.
Not even New York City could do it. And New York City has a large GDP for a city, a large population for a city, and still, the
only scenario would be if California becomes independent, then one county wants to break away, but then that's getting pretty far fetched.
Yeah. Well, and it would be the only way that it would be possible for that county to pursue it on their own, to break away from California, like pre-California independence. That's not really going to be possible for them, like legally or like practically. But then, should we go independent, they would be much better off. They really might find themselves no longer wanting to leave.
And then that also gets into
we're not going to have the federal government reaching over from Washington, D.C., telling us how we have to live our lives on the grid and this and that and the other. Yeah, that's correct. Now it's California is the end of the line for jurisdictional authority. And since you're on unincorporated property, guess what? But yeah. It is a long shot, for sure.
I was going to say, that kind of gets into, hypothetical discussions about the system of government that a hypothetical nation would have. But, Marcus, do you want to go ahead and read the speech based on what I sent you?
Sure. So I modified it a little bit. I can read the original one you sent me. 1 second. And then I'll show you this new one I have. This is a speech for the Catalan independence movement, which seeks an independent nation made up of the Catalan region of Spain and to all peoples of Catalonia on behalf of the Calixt Congress. We admire you as a friend and sister nation, holding shared values as a fellow quest for independence. We acknowledge that you have a distinct culture, including language that is distinct from the rest of Spain. We also recognize the similar traits, including your Mediterranean climate, geography, and diversity, and as a hub of economic innovation. And like you are paying an unfair economic output to a nation, and your citizens are being robbed economically and culturally. We wish you the best on your struggle for independence in a peaceful democratic referendum, and look forward to strengthening the ties between our lands and peoples from the Calixt Congress in hope of your destiny as an independent sovereign nation. Let me grab that and let me show you something. Okay. 1 second. Sorry, the computer's thinking. Give me a second. Okay, I apologize. It's all right. So let me show you this, guys, if I may.
Yeah, we got patience, man. No worries.
Sorry. Okay, so Robert, I took your speech. I felt that the speech was very similar to the one for the Cape, which in a way was very good because it followed the model. But I also wanted to like tailor this to the Catalan movement. So I took a liberty, Robert, of using the information that I knew about Catalan. I'd been following them for a while, so I have a kind of a good insight into what they're about. And I made
you remember our contact who interviewed us that day of the banner drop from Catalan.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So I took what you wrote, Robert, which was good, but I felt very similar to the Cape thing, and I tried to modify it to fit Catalonia, but still using the model that you wrote. Robert, may I have your permission to read this out to the two of you, just so you can get a test drive?
Yes.
This is a speech for the Catalan independence movement, which seeks to be an independent nation from the Calexic Congress. We admire you as a friend and sister nation, holding shared values, including a commitment to the right to hold a peaceful vote for independence. We acknowledge that you have a distinct culture, including language, from the rest of Spain. We in California watched as your government beat your people for wanting to hold a peaceful vote and treated them with as much repression as the Chinese government did to the people of Hong Kong for wanting what we in California want, the right to have a peaceful vote to determine our regional government. We also recognize the similar traits between our movements, including your Mediterranean climate, geography of being a major port region, which has led you to become economically centered around international trade to a degree far beyond the rest of Spain. Your willingness to connect to the outside world has brought you more wealth than the rest of Spain, and because of that, and because of the different historical culture, you too, like we in California, have been overly taxed and had your wealth taken from you to benefit the rest of your host nation, a host that does not share your values and is not dedicated, like you are, to doing what it takes to be a modern international trade economy. And
if I could just point out real quick, from the Calexic Congress, the very first line, this is a speech from the Calexic Congress to the Catalan independence movement, which seeks to be an independent nation. Nice. Otherwise, it just sounds like they're seeking independence from the Calexic Congress.
Good catch. We wish you the best on your struggle for independence and peaceful democratic referendum. What do you guys think of that? Roughly.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, I like it so far. Is it worth mentioning California's ties to Spain, or is that arbitrary since it's not really specific to Catalonia?
I think that's probably, California's connections to Spain are like a genocidal king sending genocidal maniacs over to go commit genocide. And the Catalonian people are kind of against the current monarchy. So I think maybe not referencing genocidal Spanish king was probably the way to go.
So yeah, I think most of it. I think most of it works pretty much works as it is so far.
Okay.
Marcus,
Okay.
if it's okay with you, do you want to read it one more time?
Sure. Yeah. Love to. This is a speech from the Cal-Ex Congress to the Catalan independence movement, which seeks starting from the top. This is a speech from the Cal-Ex Congress to the Catalan independence movement, which seeks to be an independent nation. We admire you as a friend and sister nation, holding shared values, including a commitment to the right to hold a peaceful vote for independence. We acknowledge that you have a distinct culture, including language, from the rest of Spain. We in California watched as your government beat your people for wanting to hold a peaceful vote and treated them with as much repression as the Chinese government did to the people of Hong Kong for wanting what we in California want, the right to have a peaceful vote to determine our regional government. We also recognize the similar traits between our movements, including your Mediterranean climate, geography of being a major port region. We also recognize the similar traits between our movements, including your Mediterranean climate and we also recognize the similar traits between our movements, including your Mediterranean climate and geography of being a major port region, which has led you to become economically centered around international trade to a degree far beyond the rest of Spain. Your willingness to connect to the outside world has brought you more wealth than the rest of Spain. And because of that, and because of your different historical culture, you too, like we in California, have been overly taxed and had your wealth taken from you to the benefit the rest of your host nation. A host that does not share your values and is not dedicated like you are, to doing what it takes to be a modern international trade economy. We wish you the best on your struggle for independence in a peaceful democratic referendum and look forward to strengthening the ties between our lands and peoples. I muddled through that one there, but that's roughly it.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I like the
Yeah, it's
triple
fantastic.
referencing
Yeah.
there.
It's like the right,
Reference
it's the
them
right
to
balance.
Hong Kong and how both of them get the beat down from dictatorial overlords, and then fortunately for us, we're not facing a beat down. Maybe there is a little something to be said for America there, but and hey, I'm a reasonable person, but ultimately we are all seeking the same thing.
There's a question like comparing like this one to the last one, like how critical do you want to be like of the country that the independence movement wants to break away from, like with the example of this one and the previous one.
That's a good point. It's up to you guys. I remember that compared to New Caledonia and Scotland and Iceland and Puerto Rico and Alaska and Texas, Spain was brutal, like China level brutal. And I think it's appropriate to call them out for that because it's unique. Like China turned on the Hong Kong people and beat them, and not everybody was too surprised because it was like a non-Western nation. But Spain is supposed to be a Western country, and they were just as brutal. Like it was, and that's not normal. I mean, again, California, Hawaii, Texas, New Caledonia, Scotland, Iceland, Puerto Rico, the Cape Province. Nobody does that, but Spain did. It was different.
Are you talking about historically or what's happened recently with political oppression?
I'm saying if you look at independence movements in the last 50 years, especially in the last 20, most of them, there's some tough talk between the two sides. Only in Spain and China did it get brutal for a modern country. You can certainly look at places in Africa and some parts of Latin America where they have independence movements and they just get AK-47s out and start shooting everybody. And again, everybody's. I'm trying to say this the right way.
Yeah, that's my buddy in Afar, the Tigray.
Yeah, exactly. So
they were declaring their, they are ethnically, culturally different, and they were an independent people at one point and haven't been getting taken care of for a long while. So they're like, hey, no, we're declaring ourselves again. And the Ethiopian government's response was mortars, bombs, tanks, long-range artillery, AK-47s, snipers, you name it.
And I'm not excusing this, but it was in Africa, and so the attitude of the media has been, well, that's what happens there. And I'm not excusing that. I'm simply saying that Spain stands out because it was a Western modern country that behaved in this matter when almost no one else did.
Yeah, right. It can be pointed out that we really only expect such atrocities from, less culturally and politically developed nations, ones that don't have a modern world thing going for them, right? But there's Spain.
That's what I'm talking about. It's like,
and Ethiopia is in Africa and has had much turmoil and unrest as all of the African continent has had over really ever since right before World War II, and then all the way through, and then like when World War II was over and everything was done getting bombed out and everyone wanted whatever resource they could grab. That was kind of when the excrement hit the fan, so to speak.
right, so long story short, are you guys okay with us calling out Spain, or should I take it out? Whatever the group wants.
I'm okay with it. I would like to see maybe in that first line, take out to be a independent nation, should have been and, but take it all out and put seeks self-determination. Awesome. Because remember, that's the key word, the hot key word that triggers the UN to go, wait a second, that's in our United Nations entrance charter. So, like, if someone is a part of the UN, they have to have signed this and agreed that self-determination is a natural human right.
Nice. Other edits?
No, I think most of it works. I don't notice any others, but
Okay. Then if I have permission, I'm going to email this to you both as a speech for Catalan.
Okay.
And I will send it to you right now. Give me 1 second. All right, speech for Catalan is now done. So that's 2 separate speeches, one for Vape Party and Catalan speech completed.
I got it.
All right, let's let everybody know that we did it. Knocked it out. We've developed a model, worked out the best way to make the model, wrote a speech off the model, wrote a second speech off the model right here in the committee meetings. That's excellent. And Sunday, we're going to get approval from the Congress to be able to issue these resolutions and the model. The meeting is only going to be a few minutes, 30 minutes, but it should be a simple approval thing.
You mean the meeting Sunday will only be 30 minutes?
Yes, sir.
And then we'll focus primarily on these resolutions.
Yeah, I'm going to do, so this Sunday, I apologize. I had to shorten it down because we have a lot of interest with the recall debates. And they're going to go away in a few weeks, right? We're not going to be able to really get any milk from this cow in coming up. So I'm just trying to use it for what we can because it is growing. It is achieving the mission statement, which is it's growing the brand name. It's making us look professional. It's bringing new members in, and it's raising the amount of people having the conversation about what if California could be a nation. So it's achieving all of our goals. That being said, the resolutions is something that I wanted to get approved a few weeks ago. So we're going to come in on Sunday. I'm going to do 5 minutes of introduction, pointing out how we've had incredible media success and everybody who works with us gets media success. And then Robert and Jason, I was going to spend the next 25 minutes for just you. I was hoping, Robert, I could call on you, and Jason, maybe I could call on you, and we just to do any of the answering questions about this, because basically it's just here's the model. Can we get approval to use this and issue resolutions? The entire rest of the meeting goes to nothing but that.
Nice. Well, I just looked up Porkfest. It's June 27th through the first week of July. So we theoretically still have time that we could make it, theoretically. If someone is crazy enough and has the will to make it happen.
Well, whoops. Good point. Good point. I'm overwhelmed following up on the recall votes, and I think it's a good use of time. It's getting us all sorts of connections and respectability and media presence, and so that will be absorbing a lot of my time, at least for the next week.
Okay, there it is. June 21st through 27th. Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, it technically, we could take like a week off, but yeah, I mean, I'll let you make the call on that one.
I would like to I would like to focus on the recall speeches. We are constantly running into new people. We are making connections into new Californians. We just had a guy who's not even associated with the movement want to come out as an advocate for California being a nation. We've gotten 2 different news articles in California about the Yes California brand, simply because of the recall debate. WildStars also had 2 different articles for him because we had the recall debate and we made international news.
So there's
because-
officially 3 independence candidates who are. There's officially 3 independence candidates running for governor.
Who are the 3?
Nicholas Wildstar, Louis Marinelli, and Michael Loebs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Score. Yeah, and I invited Michael to come out to the debates. So I was totally fair. He was given an invite. Everybody got an invite. So just for the record.
So as far as does discussing his campaign, does that go against the rules against discussing other collective organizations, or is there an exception because of the recall?
Well, I think there's an exception, but his unwillingness to even respond means that there is no longer reason to even make an exception. There's no reason to really talk about him because he's choosing to not even respond or have anything to do with us. And hey, that's his prerogative. He doesn't want to be, debating half of the rest of the candidates. That's his choice.
Robert, it's a gray area. You're asking a great question. I think Jason has the answer. If Professor Loebs says, hey, I'd like to come to the debate, then of course we have made a promise and we will keep it. However, he hasn't responded, and I don't feel there's going to be much chance that he will. But if he does, yes, of course. But probably not. If he does go, yes, he could talk about whatever he wants when he introduces himself. Because the recall debates are not Calexic Congress. They're a product of Calexic Congress. So, we're not really talking about independence in those recall debates. Now, if someone else brings it up, that's fine. But we're going out of our way to go. This is just plain Jane. In which case, we wouldn't bring up that anything about that. But if they want to, they could.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, we have not asked a single independence or self-determination or anything like that sort of question. We haven't brought up Texas versus white in a question for the candidates, only in response to others bringing it up. And Marcus, as the moderator, only brings up factoids when, facts need to be checked.
We work really hard to be independent. Anyways, yes. However, the recall debates are going to end. There's going to be some other people doing it in the next couple weeks. We know that the major recall movement is hosting some serious debates at the end of this month. So we have a few more weeks where we're the big fish in a little pond. And the only, and that's when I think we can clean up. After that, it's probably going to go away and we can move back on to other projects.
Does the Congress, have there been talks of the Congress actually launching candidates as a party, or does that violate the nonprofit?
We've had talks. I don't know if it's gotten any further than talks. We're always open to talks. If somebody wants to, we want to back anybody who wants to talk about independence, just straight up, and support them. So if you want to run and go, hey, I'm going to talk about independence, okay, whoever wants to. Being a party, I think somebody's mentioned it once or twice. We've left it there, but it's certainly not. There's nothing. We could do that if somebody really wanted to.
Yeah, it ultimately comes down to we are not a political party, so we can't
because
actually
because it's a nonprofit, then it would lose its nonprofit status.
Yeah, one thing that we can do, since we are a political action committee, is they put on a debate series which provides a platform for all of the candidates in all fairness, but one or more of those candidates we know to be someone who is a hardcore Cal Exeter. So, it means our message gets served. YesCalifornia.org is up there. We got the nice, recall debate thing that was made. All the graphics and banners have been awesome. Looks totally pro. I honestly don't think we should stop it. I think maybe we could do it every other week or something, but I don't think we should really stop it altogether until
we won't stop as long as people keep coming. We'll keep doing it.
Okay. Because it keeps our name up there. I mean, right now we are the king of the hill. If we stop, we're just walking down from the hill and saying, okay, we give it up. And
we made international press. We've made California conservative news. We've made inroads with the actual recall movement. We have the news covering this, and the videos each have like a couple hundred people watching them, which are not just California Cal Congress members. And each candidate is sharing the videos around. So we are getting recognition of Yes California as a professional group of people. And we are getting press, and we are getting, this is everything. This is everything that a project's supposed to be. This isn't the only thing that we're going to do.
The other thing to consider is, so far, the debate that I've seen from the other group, not everyone was invited. There were more candidates than who they reached out to. We make a point to reach out to everyone. And at first, they were like, we'll see. And then they see how professional it is. And they see we are true to our word, that we are maintaining neutrality on all things other than facts. Facts are facts, and there's no denying that. But, that's due to our awesome moderator, right? You get a free platform and moderation services. You don't have to pay us a buttload of money. There's no commercials. So 1 hour of debate is 1 hour of debate, not, 10 minutes of debate chopped up into an hour. It's good for the candidate. It's good for the voter. It's great for us because we're hosting it. So our name gets up there the whole time everyone's seeing YesCalifornia.org. So whether the other folks are doing their own debate series that they're inviting whoever they choose, I think we should continue our high integrity, very official, very neutral debate series. And we could tone it down. Maybe we don't have to have a full debate thing every week, but, even after these folks start up their official recall group debate, whatever, unless they are having every single candidate up there, then we should continue.
Well, we won't stop. We'll keep going. I need to, Robert, the other thing is that the debate, the reason is it's the Yes California Cal Congress working. So that idea came from Jason. Nicholas and Lewis were both talking about the recall. Jason brought up the debate. I wasn't even thinking about this stuff. Then we talked about it in the Congress. Everybody threw in their 2 cents. I think you did too, a few other people, maybe even a professor back then, even if it was in opposition, but that made us just frame it even smarter and work harder to make it professional. Then we reached out to people with our contacts. We even had a committee meeting, I think, on that. And then we had the first debate, and then we built off that. And reported progress, and then we built another one, and now we've had a couple, and then we reported progress from being in the news. So it's full circle. You know, the idea was inseminated here and went through the entire stage of development in that womb that's the Galaxy Congress here. And here it is. But it's only one example. For example, another project was Keith Preston. So Robert, you hooked up Keith Preston coming in. That was a great episode. You know, that was a professor. He was there at the show. We had a high-level conversation on pan-secessionism. That just looks really good to have professors speaking about that. And I could tell he also...
Yeah, no, that one was epic. I sat silent and wasn't really typing in the comments that whole time because I was riveted. That was an epic score right there.
That was all you, Robert. So
Thanks. Yeah.
It's about these kind of things. We do these things. People come in. I could tell that Keith Preston was a little bit shocked when I was coming over the information about people in California saying, let's secede. You know, he hadn't seen that. And it was also high-level information. So now that raises the profile of Yes California. And then here's this guy speaking about this, and it's intelligent. And now he's on that video, and he can reference it. And that was all you. It's the goals that this group of people set, we are achieving. Okay.
Yeah, and then we've got the Dialogue of Nations coming up sometime. I saw an official announcement from Mr. Ianov. Went out saying that will be soon.
Nice.
So
Nice.
we're probably going to need some sort of something statement for PorcFest. We are going to want updated facts and figures for CalExit matters or Dialogue of Nations. It's also going to help us whenever we're running folks on numbers and stuff, right? Maybe our great pals over at Zogby Polling, and is it zogby.com or zogbypolls.com?
Right.
Maybe we could convince them to give a nice little double check, you know, now that Biden's passed his 100 days and proven his lack of worth. And since Kamala, the Californian, is down in Guatemala to tell Guatemalans not to go to America, rather than go check on the state of things at the border facilities where people are saying there's all sorts of atrocious crimes going on.
Yeah, I saw that.
So maybe now Californians are starting to feel a little different, like, oh wow, they were right. It really doesn't matter. Trump, Biden, red, blue, it really does not matter. America is going one way, and that's down.
That was the thing that shocked Professor Preston, right? The polls of California saying they had no faith in America, and then
also with Biden, there's always going to be a kind of honeymoon period with the new president within their base. But the same with the infrastructure and student debt relief. Like a lot of, I think progressives will gradually become more and more disaffected with Biden. We're already beginning to see it, but especially from a year from now.
he's not going to get the infrastructure bill passed. He's not going to get the police reform bill passed. He's not going to get that save voting thing passed. So all those reforms about police reform and infrastructure and stopping the Jim Crow laws, none of that's going to happen. And a lot of progressives are going to go, why couldn't you get that done when you have basically 50-50 control of the Senate and You still have control of the House and the presidency, right? Like they're looking at this as you have no reason to not ram through legislation. And they don't want to hear, well, if I do that, that's like really going to upset Republicans in a permanent way that causes them to not have any willingness to participate in the democracy any further. But on the left, they don't care if Republicans are disenfranchised by their belief in democracy. They view them as people who don't even care about democracy and are crazy. And Biden does recognize that you have to have some cohesion amongst the whole federal government for it to work, because he's been there forever. He is the system. Unfortunately, nobody has an appetite at this moment. So when those bills fail,
the parties concerned need to meet in the middle, but on both polar opposites, they're like, doing that thing where you flip the magnets the right way so that they push away rather than pull together.
Yep. And exactly, Jason. And Robert, you're right. Exactly. So Jason's analogy, Robert, your content. Everybody, you're both correct. I feel these things aren't going to pass because the only way they could pass is if they pounded them in a scorched earth way. Biden's not going to do that because he is the system and it's broken. So when those things fail, progressives are going to be really upset. And then they're going to go into midterms, which are probably going to have Republicans gain control of the Senate again. And then nothing's going to happen. So it's very likely they're going to be disappointed with Biden, like you said, next year, maybe even just a few months from now. I heard reporters attacking Biden's press agent about how come the infrastructure bill isn't happening. And she did the classical, it takes time and there's backroom negotiation. And it was just a lot of jingoistic sound bites to sound like it's going to be okay. It's
political
clear
double speak.
Yeah, people are already smelling that the beef you serve for dinner's rotten. Maybe they aren't calling him out on it, but they're starting to smell. Like I see more and more liberals going, well, hold on, what is this? I mean, the New York Times said, wow, I guess it's cool to keep kids in cages on the border now for Dems. It was in their title. It was something like they don't seem to care anymore. Like the New York Times just straight up called them out on it. I was blown away. Progressives care. Progressives are not going to allow that to be okay, especially in California, which is Bernie country. So, and look who was so dramatically supporting Biden. It's people who are over 50.
So I know, like we have all the collective candidates, but does the Bernie wing of the Democratic Party, do they even have a recall candidate, or is the Democratic Party so sort of militant, like you have to support their candidate, Newsom? Right. Maybe might be like a Green Party candidate, but I don't even think the Bernie wing of the Democrats even. They probably do have representatives in California, like on a state level, but they don't have a recall. I don't think they have a recall candidate or at least that I'm aware of.
Well, there is no separate Bernie party. There's a lot of people who want there to be one. There's many Californians who are working for that, but there is no technically separate Bernie party. It's technically Bernie himself ran as a Democrat. So that whole movement is technically within the Dems. And the Democrats have said that they don't want anybody running.
And even then, like there's a lot of people who claim that kind of progressive mantle. Like there's a lot of disappointment with them. Like the example of Jimmy Dore calling out AOC. Like she was a big icon of that movement, but she's been extremely tepid in calling out Biden. Like even when she gives speeches, like she uses sort of empty slogans like organizing, but she doesn't explicitly call for making demands on like economic issues. So even a lot of people who have claimed that Bernie mantle have been disappointing to the people who initially supported them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that actually it is accurate. And I think that speaks directly to the ineptitude of the system and not so much of the people individually themselves, right? Like Bernie or AOC. We know each individual to be very well versed in law, and they definitely have a fire inside that burns for the people. However, who do they work for? What system do they work in? A broken, inept system. So no matter how much they might want change, ultimately 2, 5, 10, 12, 15, 20, still not enough. You need the majority to all be reading from that same book. And that's not likely going to happen until the older generation of current established politicians are gone and the younger, newer generation not only steps forth but also takes hold, so to speak. Because AOC and, the squad will be middle-aged politicians at that point. But, that's pretty much a generation away. We want to sit around and wait a whole another generation? Really? and do we think it can last that long?
Okay.
So yeah, there are a couple of green and independent candidates in the recall.
There's also there's a party like American Solidarity. They're kind of interesting because they're right wing on social issues, but more left wing on economics, which is sort of outside of what you normally expect. I think they had a candidate at the debate.
Yeah, I believe they did as well. I remember someone had brought it up, and I can't think of who it was.
And then I'm not sure the Green Party they have a candidate.
Do they have an official candidate that they have sponsored / endorsed, or there's someone who is registered green like myself who is running?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's many liberals running, but officially the Democratic Party of California is telling all Dems and progressives not to run. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's public. But does that mean that everybody who's a Democratic Green Party member agrees? No.
Well, yeah, right. As we heard from, I believe, 2 registered Democrats during our last debate, they have heard the cry from their party to not run, and they are choosing consciously to not obey that command because they realize, I think very wisely so, that it would be foolish to not have a lifeboat prepared for what appears to be a sinking ship. I mean, how familiar are we with that, right?
They also, the other thing that's interesting about the polls is that the polls have said that a majority of Californians want another Democrat to run. So the Democratic Party of California is actively doing what we know the voters don't want. That PPIC poll said a majority of voters want a Democrat to run in the recall in case Newsom loses.
Yeah, did you see The Rising has two new people since they've gotten rid of
Oh yeah.
Crystal and Sagar. And
Did they? You think they?
their new show is up, but the new Rising crew, their hot topic that they discussed today was the recall, and they posted showed new figures for it, and it's actually over the 50% mark of people who want Gavin gone now.
Seriously? Did you already
Yeah.
post that out?
Yeah, it's in our WhatsApp group chat. As well as like a week or two ago, there's a whole breakdown of the history of Catalonia and everything, all the way to the Catalonian independence movement. It's a Catalonian independence movement breakdown on what if Spain fell apart. So when you get time, definitely check that one out. You'll find it interesting.
Could you resend that one, Jason? There's just, there's a lot.
Yeah, I can send that one out again.
Just the one on that poll. I want to see that because I'll bring that up this weekend.
Yeah, let me pull up the chat.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up in a few minutes. So
yeah, I'll go through in a bit and I'll find that all again, and
Thank you,
I'll
brother.
send it over to you again.
I'm sorry. Yes, I know you sent. If you could just send it to me again, I want to look at that and cover it this Sunday. Robert, are we good? We've knocked out 2 speeches, and we're going to spend 25 minutes out of the meeting, which is the bulk of the meeting, this Sunday, just getting approval to get this train rolling. Is that okay, sir?
So approval, it will be a vote of approval for the template and for each individual, the 2 individual resolutions.
It'll just be for the template and the overall concept. Are they roughly okay?
I say we present the 2 that we now have formulated and finalized at the same time as an example, so that Congress can see, okay, this template will turn out stuff like this on all of these different movements.
But they would still have to be voted upon individually.
If they approve the template, I think maybe we could ask that acceptance of the template would mean acceptance of all of the attached resolutions.
I'd say just for the sake of time, I think it might, if each one is voted on, it would end up taking a lot of time. But I'd say vote on the template to vote on the template, and then that would just allow for all of them to be put forth, just for the sake of time.
Okay. Is that cool, Jason?
Yeah. To be clear, I'm not saying we should vote on each of them that's been written and finalized. I am saying we get a vote done on the template, and then that when we ask for that vote, we include that acceptance of this template would translate to acceptance of the resolutions built in this order on this template. And that would give us our, air quotes, legal precedent for go ahead and just custom.
Is that okay, Robert?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. That's what we'll do on Sunday. All right, who wants to close this out?
I can close this since Jason introduced it. So this, if both of you are fine with that.
Totally.
So we discussed today's meeting on the Joint Resolution Committee. We discussed Pork Fest and resolutions on Catalan and the format for resolutions. I, Robert Stark, at us 8:25, June 8th, officially closed this meeting.
You guys did great. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Robert.